If the Sabbath day is Saturday, why do millions of Christians go to church on Sunday? Did God change the Sabbath? Did the church change it? Or does the Bible tell a deeper story? To understand this, we must go back to the very beginning. Genesis chapter 2 verse 2 says, "And on the seventh day God ended his work, and he rested." Verse 3 continues, "And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it." This is the origin of the Sabbath, the seventh day. But notice this carefully. No command is given to humanity here. The Sabbath exists, but it is not yet law. Hundreds of years later, the Sabbath becomes a command. Exodus 20 verse 8 says, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy." God now makes the Sabbath part of the law. And in Exodus 31 verse 16, God says, "The children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath." Verse 17 calls it a sign between me and the children of Israel. This is important. The Sabbath is a covenant sign with Israel. It reminded them that God created and that God delivered them. Under the law, the Sabbath was extremely serious. Numbers 15 records a man gathering sticks on the Sabbath. He was judged. This shows how binding the Sabbath was under the law. Then Jesus enters the story. Luke 4 verse 16 says, "Jesus went to the synagogue on the Sabbath." Jesus kept the Sabbath because he was born under the law. But he also made a shocking statement. Mark 2 verse 27, "The Sabbath was made for man." And verse 28, "The Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath." Jesus claims authority over the Sabbath. Then comes the turning point of history. Matthew 28 verse 1 says, "In the end of the Sabbath, toward the first day of the week." John 20 verse 1 confirms, the first day of the week, the tomb was empty. Jesus rose on Sunday. The Sabbath celebrated rest after creation. Sunday celebrates new life after resurrection. After this, something changes. John 20 verse 19 says, Jesus appeared to his disciples on the first day. The early church begins gathering on Sunday. Acts 20 verse 7 says they met on the first day to break bread. Paul even instructs offerings on the first day. 1 Corinthians 16 verse 2 confirms it. This is decades before any Roman emperor. Later, Paul explains the meaning. Colossians 2 verse 16 says, "Let no man judge you in Sabbath days." Verse 17 adds, "These are a shadow, but the body is Christ." The Sabbath pointed forward. Christ is the fulfillment. Romans 14 verse 5 says, "Let every man be persuaded in his own mind." The Bible never says the Sabbath was changed to Sunday. Jesus said in Matthew 5 verse 17, "I came not to destroy, but to fulfill." Hebrews 4 says our true rest is in Christ. Saturday was a sign of the old covenant. Sunday celebrates the resurrection of the new covenant. Christians don't worship on Sunday because the Sabbath changed. They worship on Sunday because the tomb was empty. Jesus said, "Come unto me, and I will give you rest." The rest is no longer in a day, but in a person. That is why Christians worship on Sunday.